Hi, it's Mr. Kane here, and we're going to complete our journey around the plant cycle. And which came first, the plant or the seed? This time we're going to look at the seeds and bits and pieces, so we're going to look there, and then you can choose where you're going to begin with the plant cycle. So we're going to look at seed plant cycle again as a whole, focusing on seed formation, seed dispersal, and then germination, which brings us back to where we started. So seeds, like they're the little packages of life. They're plant babies, basically. They can be extremely tiny, minuscule, like mustard seed type size, up to coconuts. And until the correct conditions arrive, until they're ready to go, they're just going to be sleeping, resting, waiting, and they can stay that way for thousands of years. There's been seeds recovered from the pyramids in Egypt that were still ready to go. And there's three main types. We've got the normal flowering plants you find in the garden, dicotyledon seeds. There's your grasses type ones with the monocotyledon seeds. And then there's your cone-bearing plants, your pine trees, etc., your needle-bearing trees. They have gymnosperm seeds. Cotyledon, it refers to the seed leaf inside the seed. Dicot means it's got two. Monocot means it's only got one. Let's have a look. So here are your three major seed types, and they've all got the same sort of parts to it. Let's look at the one on the right-hand side. So it's got an outside, the seed coat. It's got a food store inside, which is the cotyledon part of it, and it's got a plant baby in there. Here's your dicotyledon one. It's got the outside, it's got the food store, and it's got a plant baby in there. And here is your pine one, your gymnosperm seed. It's got the coat around the outside, the food store here, and the baby inside it. So they've all got the same kind of things in there. So let's have a bit more of a look at those. So this is your typical seed that we're most familiar with, your pea seed, your bean seeds, peanuts. Okay, we've got a seed coat. They give it a fancy name called a tester. That's the outside. It's very super tough. It can even travel through our insides and intestines without being changed very much. Then we've got the plumule, or the leaves of the baby. Then there's the hypocotyl, or the radicle, which is the root of the baby. The hilum, that's where the seed was attached in the seed pod. You can call it its belly button if you like. There's a thing called a micropyle where water will get in and sort of trigger the germination process. And then there's the cotyledon, which is the food storage part of the seed. Monocotyledon seeds have the same sort of things. So we've got a seed coat or a tester. Endosperm is a food storage. The first leaf, in this case, is a cotyledon type leaf, which also contains food store. Then you've got the shoot proper and the root in there, the radicle and the epicotyl. Okay, so that's our seeds. Let's look about how they get to different places, because seeds can't walk, so how they get around. So we've got, they can be carried by wind. Water can float them around. There are some explosive ones, and there's animal carried ones. Now animal carried ones come in two types. One, they can attach themselves to the outside, or two, they travel on the inside when they get eaten by an animal. So let's look at wind. So here's three major types. Pepper pots, where the flower dries out to this hollow thing, and as the wind blows it shakes it about, and the seeds shake out like you're sort of shaking salt from the salt shaker. Your parachutes, those fine filaments, and this is like sort of your thistle seeds and your dandelions, that they float on the breeze and they can carry it a hugely long way. Summertime, you lie on the back on the lawn, look up into the sky, and you'll see these things floating past. And your spinners, your airplane propeller types with a wing attached to it that whirs away and spirals around and around like your sycamore and your maple trees. And they spin it around, they help it travel a good way from the parent tree. All these things will be quite light and quite small usually, so the wind can carry them. Water, these guys float, so they'll be near a stream, and you'll see willows tracing the course of rivers because their seeds get carried down by the river. Not every plant seed survive floating in water. Some seeds will actually drown. And coconuts can float that way for years. They can end up miles away from where they started. As long as they're floating and moving, they don't start to sprout. It's when they sit still and park up on the top of the beach where the tide's tossed them, that's when they start to sprout. And this one seems to have a passenger. Explosive ones, these things dry out and eventually the seed pod springs open and flings their seed out violently across the neighbourhood. And here in Christchurch, where I live on the Port Hills, we have a lot of gorse plants. They've brought there by the first settlers and grown wild ever since. And in hot summer days, their seed pods will dry out. Late in the summer, you'll be up there and you'll hear the seed pods cracking and popping and seeds being flung about. Animal, first one, on the outside. So seeds are going to have little hooks and burrs all over them, and look, there's a cat covered in seeds that are hooked onto its fur, and they get onto our clothing as well. So hooks on their seed fruit things to attach themselves to us, or feathers, or clothes, hair. Annoying things, but an effective way of getting carried from one place to another. When you haven't got your own legs, use someone else's. Second version, on the inside. Okay, so many seeds survive passing through your insides. In fact, some seeds actually need a journey through insides before it will actually sprout. So there's wheat gets eaten up a fair bit by birds, pass through quite a few as well. There's some fruit that contains seeds inside. I was talking to my brother recently. He had his gutters full of sprouting cherry pips and other seeds from birds that had carried things up there. Strawberries with the seeds actually on the outside of that one, and we'll eat all these things and the seeds will pass through. Not that you'd notice. I don't think we go searching for those seeds and when we've flushed them down the toilet, but they do travel and they do survive. Nuts, if they get eaten, they're usually quite destroyed, but your squirrels and stuff will store a few, bury them away somewhere else, and they'll forget where they are and they'll sprout later on. So that's seed dispersal. Last wing, germination. The seed starts to grow. Needs some few things. So germination is the seed being born into a new plant, and it needs three things, only three: warmth, water, oxygen. Doesn't need light, it's underground if it's been planted. It needs warmth, that's why things tend to start growing in the springtime. It needs water, it needs oxygen. It needs all those three things in the right combination to trigger it to grow. Some seeds need a period of cold beforehand before they start to grow, but only three things: warmth, water and oxygen. Once it's out of the seed, then we'll need some light to get energy to help it grow its own food. Once it's used up the food stored in the seed, it's got to make its own. It needs light for that, and it needs soil for the minerals and nutrients that it also needs to help it grow. Hydroponics, they grow plants in a nutrient liquid solution instead of soil, and you'll often have a lot of your supermarket grown lettuces grown this way. So germination, what does it actually look like? We start with the seed putting out the root, then the shoot, and finally it gets established with the root down below the soil, and root hairs gathering all the minerals and nutrients, and the first leaves above the soil gathering the sunlight. To start with, needs water, warmth and oxygen. After that, light and soil. So that's completed our journey around the plant cycle. I hope that was informative and helpful. Thank you for watching.